I wanted to ask, what sparked you wanting to do this film? Tell us a little bit about where the original idea came about for you for this film.
It's been a long process, to be honest with you. We've been planting trees for records back in 2013, 2014, and a natural progression in our way of stepping back into Earth alignment as a band has just been happening over a period of time, and it kind of came to a forefront in the last 3-4 years when the next necessary step was to really take that big deep dive, and we had to document it in order to explain what it is that we were learning, and it fleshed out and became a movie.
Now, we all have different reasons for how we became interested in the environment. For me, it was growing up in the Australian bush, and I've always had that love for the land. Tell us a little bit about where that journey started for you. When did you first become really aware of what was happening with this planet, but also for your love for the environment as well?
We're from the Northern Rivers, and it's a very, very beautiful, fertile, lush place. And we've always been connected to it. We've always been playing in the creeks and beaches. Very privileged to have a growing up here. But it wasn't until we started touring, the cities and the ghettos of the world, I think, that we started to feel a disconnection within ourselves, that we didn't have those green places to connect back to.
Yeah.
And that was also reflective of what was happening within the society. And so when we come home, you instantly feel replenished. And then it was, wow, it's a necessity, not just a desire. And I think that was a huge click, that people don't have access to this.
Yeah. One of the things I find really interesting is when I chat to people, they always say, I want to do something for the environment, but it's too difficult. Or they'll say something like, well, I recycle every week, that's all that I can do. You guys took that extra step and decided that you were going to make your album completely green. Tell us a little bit about how you got to that next step, because like I said, so many people just use the throwaway lines of, I recycle, so that's enough. How did you guys actually get to that next step of, hey, let's do this album totally green? And were you worried that you wouldn't be able to do it?
I don't want to say that we were worried we wouldn't do it. It was just more of here's an adventure, let's see what happens kind of a thing. We're really kind to ourselves in that. So
yep.
We kind of felt like we were breaking new ground. And yeah, just doing away with the plastic is just was the no-brainer. The line in the sand we wanted to draw. And from there, with the help of our incredible label, UNFD, we were just researching and finding out how and what were the problems and who could help us address those. So yeah, we got into the paper stock, the ink stock, the neutrality around the carbon neutrality on the shipping, and then we had to find materials that were recycled. When I say recycled, I mean the actual vinyl itself is like a plastic, a polymer, but we were able to recycle old vinyl down to create these one of a kind new variants. So that was really cool.
And when you say about talking to experts and doing research, tell us a little bit about how you went about that, because that's something that is explored in the film. But how did you go about that for all the people listening at the moment that are thinking that they would like to take the same path?
Well, I mean, luckily we have a little bit of a platform already established, so some of those experts kind of taking the inquiry seriously when we were able to reach out, and then just speaking to them, or looking at their what they're posting about, feeling out what they're about, what solutions they have to offer. We spoke with the company called Feet. They're incredible, doing solar regeneration for artists around the world. Damon Gamo, he's filmed 2040. He's got a lot of incredible solutions that he has found out there in the world, and it's just building this web and this network of a council, it also making sure that we are realizing that whatever we do is not going to be perfect. Giving yourself that kindness to just do the best you can.
And of course, there was so much going on while you were putting this documentary together as well. Bushfires, global pandemic, and a whole bunch of stuff. Tell us some of the challenges that you faced when you were putting this documentary together.
The bushfires was was an interesting one because we were actually had started our record in America, and we were watching, our home country sort of start to go up in flame, and it was affecting the people around us. We were seeing the images. It was kind of really, we felt connected yet disconnected from it because we weren't actually there, and it was really like that feeling bled into the music that we were creating.
Yeah,
so it became like the soundtrack to what was happening at the time. And then when the pandemic hit, we had this record that we felt was really powerful that we'd sort of put everything into, and we were just about to tour it. And the pandemic hits that really railroaded just the whole momentum, everything. And it also railroaded us being able to document, the film with ease. And it became, in a way it was silver lining. It actually gave us more time to focus in on the film. And while everything was grounded, we could really just see how can we do this as best we can.
I've heard some horror stories of people trying to make films during this period. I spoke to a film director in London who had this weird rule put on them all of a sudden while filming during the pandemic where none of their actors could actually leave the studio for the entire time that they were filming. So people were bunking down in sleeping bags to sleep in the studio. How did the pandemic affect what you were doing? And like you said, there was a little bit of a silver lining there. So how did it actually help you in a sense as well?
Well, when everything's on hold, all your moving parts are stationary, so you can really look at them. Looking at them while they're moving can be challenging sometimes. So that, for me, was the silver lining, that we could just be like, all right, like, where is everything? Where do we emit? Like, what can we do better while it's down, so that when it's back up, we can do it the right way. As far as making the film itself goes, we had a lot of time on our hands, so that was helpful. But it was super challenging with border closures because we'd have to hire remote filmers in America and in Victoria who were still operating within the restrictions to do the interviews, and I'd have to be on Zoom doing as if I was in the room, doing them across, and then trying to get that footage back. It was that was a real challenge.
You also had things happening during the doco as well that kind of changed the narrative of where the film was going as well. Things like copping backlash and things. How did the finished product of the documentary change to how you imagined it in the first place? Because all of those things seem to change the narrative of the doco.
Yeah, that's a doco for you. It's not a fixed endpoint.
Yeah.
It's there's the trail, and I'm heading that way, and we'll see what happens. And that's the magic of doco. It's like its own being that you just kind of working with. You don't know where it's going to end up, and it can be exciting and frustrating sometimes.
Yeah.
As far as backlash goes, it's a challenging. We're sort of testing what the done thing is, I think, at the moment. And a lot of people just are resistant to that change because it's really inconvenient.
Yep.
In the short term, but in the long term, it'll be very convenient to have a healthier planet to live on. So it's just changing those ways of thinking and challenging where it feels right.
Did that surprise you, though, or was that something that you guys kind of expected, that there would be that backlash?
I think, anytime you're in a new room by yourself or treading new ground, you got to expect it, but you still don't know what it's going to look like, where it's going to come from.
Yeah.
I think the major one was hey, retailers, we want to get this record into your, stores. How, we're going to deliver this thing not in plastic, and they're like, no, we can't do that. And that was, to me, was like, what? It was a bit of it's just not how it's done. They don't accept it if it's not shrink wrapped.
Yeah.
But a protocol and those sorts of setbacks were well, that's going to really affect sales and affect our fans being able to listen to the songs,
Yeah.
So I think that was a big one, and you've got to deal with that really quickly.
Going back to about the changing narrative as things happen during it as well, does that also cause a problem for you guys when you get to the editing process, because you suddenly have all these extra things that you need to put in there, the things around the bushfires, the things around the pandemic? Does that change that, because suddenly you have all of this extra footage and these extra kind of stories to put in there? Does it affect the editing process? Yep, it's back. Yep.
You said, does it affect the extra stories? Is that correct?
Yeah. Does it affect the editing? Like, because all of a sudden you've got all these extra stories and everything to try and put into the actual narrative of the documentary when you were probably planning on not having those kinds of things.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, if it wasn't this, it might have been something else. Again, with docos, you just don't know. It's not a bad problem to have. Is a lot of content. To be fair,
Yep.
From a filmmaking storytelling point of view, to distill it down, you've got to be a little bit brutal sometimes, and choose what are the really important things here. And also, what's the story telling us that needs to be told?
Definitely. Now, how do you feel now that it's about to be screened at the festival? Are you pretty excited, or are you getting nervous about it being out there for everybody to see?
I'll be relieved when I see it on the big screen. I think we've been incubating this thing for the last couple of years. It's just been an idea and they call it a hobby or a project, and it still quite doesn't feel real till it's actually on the screen. And I welcome the feedback. Like it's not a perfect play. Like it's our first film. And there's going to be many holes that we didn't see because we are just not superhuman. So we need that feedback so that we can be more we can construct an even better model moving forward.
Definitely. And I guess to finish off, would you be open to making more films in the future? And also, what would you like to say to everybody out there who are thinking about heading along and checking out the film at the festival?
Yeah, I would love to make more films in the future. I mean, this was such a big project that I wouldn't be rushing into a new one anytime soon. But there's such a medium right now and an importance for the arts in all shapes and forms to really be stepping into what's needing to be said and needing to be told. So I encourage everyone, if you're an artist, to be a part of that movement, because we need it now more than ever. As for doing your own thing, just pick what it is that you love. You don't have to make art. It can be what you do in your everyday job or where your hobby is. There's the smallest little things, but you've got to go where you feel led, or you won't be able to make a difference without it coming from a real place.
Definitely.